Hello everybody, Jennifer Maker here. The quality of the materials we use in our crafts can make or break a project. In print sublimation, that's especially true. But what if you also need the results to be comfy as well as long-lasting, like a t-shirt? I put several popular t-shirt brands that you voted on through the ringer to help you pick the best option. So come with me and we'll take a closer look at each one. Sublimation t-shirts are very popular. Of course, sublimation does take some special equipment, but once you're up and running, it's one of the easiest ways to create professional looking items right at home. And since the designs use ink instead of solid colors like iron-on vinyl projects, you can work with detailed images, gradients, and even your favorite photos. The best part is that the design actually dyes the item instead of just sitting on top of it like a heat transfer vinyl project. So the design doesn't affect the shirt's feel, and it will hold up as long as the fabric does. No more worrying about peeling parts or stiff designs. If you're new to sublimation, be sure to check out my Sublimation for Beginners video to learn all about how cool sublimation really is. It's over at jennifermaker.com/sublimation for beginners. But here's the important thing. You cannot use just any t-shirt for a sublimation design. The process works best on white polyester shirts, which soak up the sublimation ink the best. And not all polyester or polyester blend shirts are of equal quality. So I asked members of my awesome sublimation group what shirts they would like me to test and compare. And I'm excited to share the results today, as well as my best tips for sublimation shirt success. I'm going to try out 3 shirts recommended for athletic use. They're all 100% polyester and mention that they help wick away moisture. The V-neck is by Joe's USA, one crew neck by Gildan, and the third is a Hanes Women's Sports Cool Dry Performance shirt. I ordered them all from Amazon. Make sure you pick white so your designs look as vibrant as possible. And while a fully polyester fabric will likely work best here, I'm also testing a plain Cricut women's shirt that's 95% polyester and 5% spandex. That's a lot of polyester, so I have high hopes for this one. Finally, a lot of people requested the Bella Canvas Women's Tri-Blend t-shirt, so I'm going to try the same design on one of these too. The white shirt is 50% polyester, 25% heirloom combed and ring spun cotton, and 25% rayon. I prefer at least 65% polyester for sublimation designs, so that is a bit of a wild card. I used an altered version of my Subliflower, which you can see here. The vibrant design has smooth gradients to evaluate how each shirt handles colors and blends. You can download a copy of my pretty flower free from my design library. It's at jennifermaker.com/481. The tools and materials are just like my other sublimation t-shirt projects. You can use any sublimation printer with compatible ink, but I use my converted Epson EcoTank with Hippo ink. 125 gram A-sub paper sublimation worked well for all of my tests. And I'll show you how to use a Cricut EasyPress with a pressing mat, but you can also just use a traditional heat press, of course. Remember, a home iron doesn't get hot enough for sublimation transfers, so don't try that. We'll also use white cardstock and butcher paper to protect everything from excess ink and a fan to disperse any sublimation fumes. Now, to make alignment easier on my shirts, I'm going to use my t-shirt ruler guides. You can make your own using the designs and the tutorial over at jennifermaker.com/t-shirt ruler guide. There's a whole set of these that you are welcome to use for free. So grab your heat-resistant tape, scissors, a pencil, and a lint roller, and you'll be ready to go. Of course, you also need a design. If you want to use my bright and cherry flower design, I'm going to show you exactly where to find the free file. So let's get started. First, the sublimation designs. To compare our shirts, I'm using this pretty sunflower with all the colors. I want to see how it will look on every shirt. If you want this pretty sunflower design, it's yours for free. Just go to jennifermaker.com/485 and look for libraries in the red bar at the top. Then click either get a password if you don't yet have one, or click enter the library. Search the page for design number 485, and when you find it, click it to download a zip file. I then printed my design from Google Docs, which I think is a great way to print sublimation designs. If you're unfamiliar with how to do this, just go to docs.google.com, click on blank to open a new document, go to the File menu and select Page Setup. Change the margins to 0 and change your paper size to match your sublimation paper size. Mine is 8.5 by 11 inches. Next, go to the Insert menu, select Image, and pick Upload from Computer. Locate the sublimation design that you want. Mine is in my Downloads folder, and click Open. The image will appear and fill your page. Now for sizing, I used the shirt decal sizing charts in my sublimation t-shirts tutorial at jennifermaker.com/sublimation t-shirt. I'm using women's medium shirts for my tests, so anything smaller than 10 inches wide and 12 inches long will look nice. To resize my design, I right-clicked the image and selected Image Options. I made sure the Lock Aspect Ratio box was checked and changed the width or height field to fit the dimensions. And I made my design 6 inches square. Then I selected the design again, and in the menu that popped up below, I clicked the second icon from the left, which is for wrap text. Now I can click and drag the image anywhere on the page. The center is best because there is plenty of space to trim or tear away the extra paper around the design. More on that in a moment. The sublimation prints. I printed the design following my earlier tutorial at jennifermaker.com/sublimation print method. There are steps for several popular printers using both Mac and Windows computers. If you're working with a larger design, I have some tips for printing larger than your printer paper at jennifermaker.com/how-to-sublimate large designs. When my designs finish printing, I let them dry completely. Any smudges could transfer to the shirts. Now, sublimation paper is pretty thin, but the edge can leave an indent on some surfaces, including fabric. So to minimize the possibility of an indent showing up, I tear away the extra paper around the design instead of cutting it. The torn edge will be a gradual transition instead of a blunt, sharp mark, so the paper's thickness is feathered. It's less likely to leave a mark now. I left enough white paper on the edges so that it can be handled without touching the ink too much. The sublimation transfer. Even though I'm testing different t-shirts, they can be prepared and pressed the same way. I use my EasyPress with the pressing mat, but this can be done with a clamshell heat press too. I set my press to 385 degrees Fahrenheit or 196 degrees Celsius. Remember, sublimation creates fumes, so open a window or turn on a fan to be safe. And I used a lint roller to remove any dust or debris from the shirt's front. The design will dye whatever it touches, so any extra fiber or dirt or pet hair will mess up our results. When the press is ready, I put a t-shirt on the pressing mat. I'm going to start with a 100% polyester Hanes cool dry shirt. Once it's ready, I folded the shirt in half lengthwise and preheated it for 10 seconds. I worked in slightly overlapping sections to make covering the entire surface easier. This smoothed the wrinkles and removed any moisture from the fabric for the best possible sublimation transfer. I also slid a piece of white cardstock inside the shirt under the design area to be sure no ink transferred to the back of the shirt. And I avoided placing the design upside down by mistake by drawing a small pencil mark on the back at its top in the center. And don't worry, the pencil mark won't transfer. To get the right positioning, I use one of my DIY t-shirt guides. You can get them free over at jennifermaker.com/t-shirt ruler guide. Then I place my sublimation print face down on my shirt. I tape the paper's edges with heat-resistant tape to keep the design in place. Note that I avoided putting tape over the ink since it can interfere with the transfer. I covered the entire design with clean white butcher paper to protect the heat press from the ink. Now I pressed all of my test shirts at 385 degrees Fahrenheit or 196 degrees Celsius for 40 seconds for consistency. But I will share an observation on that part during the tests. I lowered the press straight down onto the design. I didn't use any extra pressure since I didn't want to move the press and cause the design to blur. When the time was up, I lifted the press straight up so nothing shifted. It's still hot, so the ink is still actually sublimating before it cools down, and we need to be careful while it cools. And then I removed the butcher paper, but I let the paper and the shirt cool for 15 seconds at least to be sure the ink was solidifying back into the fibers. If I had lifted it off too fast, I might have caused ghosting or blurring. And when it was cool to the touch, I removed the tape, paper, and cardstock. And there's our sublimated design. This first one I pressed is the 100% Hanes Women's Sport Cool Dry Performance Shirt. The color looks great. I also tried a 100% polyester V-neck by Joe's USA and a 100% polyester crew neck shirt by Gildan and a Cricut t-shirt with 95% polyester and 5% spandex. And the Bella Canvas Women's Tri-Blend t-shirt with only 50% polyester, 25% cotton, and 25% rayon. Now, how did our sublimation shirts turn out? I applied my sublimation flower design to 2 of each t-shirt styles that you voted on. Then I washed and dried one of each set using the recommended care and settings to see how they held up. For these shirts, I used a cool water wash and low heat tumble dry, but always check the tag in case your material has a different recommendation. But that's my general recommendation for sublimation shirts. I've looked carefully at the results and judged them in 4 areas, with 1 heart being my least favorite and 4 being the best. I'm looking at color, or how well the vibrancy of the design transferred to the shirt. Fit, to gauge whether or not the shirt shrunk or held its shape after washing. Feel, the texture of the fabric before and after washing, and really whether or not I'd want to wear the shirt. And care, to see how each shirt fared after being washed and dried. This category is really important, and the results surprised me quite a bit, and I think they're going to surprise you too. The 3 100% polyester shirts I tested had pretty similar results, but I found a few important differences. Now, before I did anything to it, the Hanes Cool Dry shirt had a very slick feeling, which makes sense since it's all 100% polyester. It's almost shiny. I don't like the texture of polyester, but I know that's really up to personal preference. The shirt took the ink really well, but the fabric showed an indent where the edges of the paper were. Feathering the edges helped, sure, but it was still there even after washing and drying. That's a bummer. Decreasing the temperature to 380 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius for 40 seconds did make less of an indent. The unwashed and washed shirts look very similar. The feel didn't change, so that's good to know. And the colors held up really well. It didn't seem to shrink or change shape either. Overall, I give the Hanes Cool Dry shirt 3 out of 4 hearts. If you don't mind the feel of polyester, it will probably be a 4 for you. Next was the Joe's US V-neck. The feel is similar to the Hanes shirt, very slick and silky. It's great for the gym, but not super comfortable in my opinion, so it loses a few points for feel. The design's colors are beautiful on these shirts. Like the Hanes shirt, I did get slight marks where the paper indented the fabric even after feathering the edges, so I can't give it full marks for color. The laundered shirt still had the same shape, size, and vibrancy, so it gets top grades for fit and care. I'd also give the Joe's US shirt 3 out of 4 hearts. The Gildan shirts feel the most cottony of the polyester shirts, so that's a plus in my opinion. It's a bit heavier than the last 2 shirts, and the pressing mark didn't show up, which is awesome. However, the colors are a bit washed out in the laundered version, as you can see. But it kept its size and shape, so full marks for fit. The washed and dried shirt might not be as bright, but it still feels the same. It's not super soft like a cotton shirt, but it's not as scratchy as the other polyester options. Overall, I gave it 3.5 hearts. Now for the blended shirts. This is where the real differences show up. And I bet you're just as curious about the Bella canvas shirt as I was. I know a lot of you love these shirts because they have a nice shape and are really comfortable, so I totally get it. Unfortunately, the blended fabric just didn't work as well as the others, which is to be expected. The polyester ratio is really important to get vibrant, consistent transfers. Right away, the design was already washed out, and it just doesn't look as good. It didn't lose much color after a wash in cool water and low heat tumble dry, but the shirt did shrink a bit, which again is to be expected with its cotton content. These shirts run small, so I'd recommend ordering a size up. I do like the feel of these shirts, probably since they have so much cotton. They're very soft and they get even softer in the wash. They're thin though, so keep that in mind. For a traditional sublimation project, I give the Bella canvas shirt only 2 out of 4 hearts. But if you want to create a vintage design without many vibrant colors or need a softer fabric, this is a great choice. Just be open to some experimenting and remember to size up. Overall, my top pick for the best shirt for sublimation is, believe it or not, the Cricut women's t-shirt. Even though it's only 95% polyester and 5% spandex, it feels almost like a cotton blend. It's also heavier than the other shirts, but in a good way. It feels more substantial. The colors came through really well. After a wash and dry, the Cricut shirt looks almost exactly the same. No shrinking or loss of color, and it's even softer now. That's why I give it 4 out of 4 hearts and pick it as the best shirt for sublimation. And no, Cricut's not paying me to say this. This was a very true test here. So with all of these results in mind, which shirt would you try first? If you're just getting started with sublimation, check out my Sublimation Startup mini course at jennifermaker.com/sublimation startup. We cover picking and setting up a printer, helpful tools, and lots of beginner-friendly projects. I have a great introduction to printing and pressing your designs, so you can get started right away. And since it's an on-demand course, you can sign up right now and learn at your own pace. If you have any questions on how to sublimate t-shirts or anything else crafty that you think I can help you with, just leave a comment below or come ask in my sublimation crafting group at jennifermaker.com/sublimation group. We would love to meet you. And that's it for today. Until next time, this is Jennifer Maker reminding you to craft a life you love.